Welcome to another episode of the Trippy J podcast. We have a special one coming to you. As we all know, it's Ohio State Michigan week, or as other people like to call it, Hate Week. I am joined tonight with Jayce, who is always with me, and I'm also joined with a special guest of ours and the host of the Real Talk podcast, Michigan fan himself, Jeff Johnson. Jeff, how you doing tonight, my guy?
Dude, I'm great. Week. That's all I've been talking about. That's all I've been posting about. That's all I've been tweeting about. That's all I've been talking about. That's why I'm on this podcast, just to talk about Michigan and Ohio. Yeah, we're here.
Jeff, cool. I'm so happy that you're here and you're joining us tonight. I'm so happy.
Dude, I'm happy too.
Jared's been ganged up on all year. He and his brother, but his brother is kind of a fake Michigan fan, but I'm just so happy it's two real Michigan fans.
Define a fake Michigan fan. What do you mean by that?
He hates everything about Ohio State.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
So he's in this game because he hates his brother. He hates Ohio State fans.
He used to wear these colors too at some point in his life, just so you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah, he had to make you happy, just so you didn't beat his ass.
I gotta be honest. If you're not a Michigan fan, if you hate Ohio State, we can be pals. Like that's my that's my mentality in life. It's like it's Michigan and whoever's playing Ohio State, let's fucking go, baby.
Oh my God. Let's ride, baby.
Let's go.
All right, before we get into the show, Jeff, I want you to talk a little bit about your podcast and kind of where we can find you at. So the floor is yours.
Yeah, so Real Talk Podcast started in February of 2020. Little did I know a month later, sports would go away. And, we just kept it afloat, talking football, talking, we were talking XFL at the time. Best thing that ever happened to the podcast was I brought in Brad Eppert. And then about 6 to 7 months into that, we started the Michigan edition of Real Talk, and it's me and my buddy Dan Nazar. You can find us on YouTube. It's Real Talk Podcast. We have a Facebook group as well. If you follow me on Twitter, it's at LFG Jeff. So let's fucking go, Jeff. You follow all my stuff, I'll send you to the right place. We talk sports, a lot of football, lots of football, a little bit of NBA here, and occasionally some soccer, but mostly NFL football. And we have the Michigan Edition pod, as well as our live shows on Sunday from 11 to noon on Spotify Live.
Damn, you guys got a lot of shit going on over there. What it sounds like.
No, it's been a hell of a ride, dude. It's just one of those things where it started off as, hey, I love talking football, so I'm just going to start this podcast. And it had been from people telling me that I should start a podcast. So I did it like as a solo act. Horrific idea, by the way. If you're going to start a podcast, you listen to this and you're like, I've been wanting to start a podcast. Chances are, if you're thinking about starting alone, I don't know what the topic is, probably don't. Discussions make everything better. That's why the three of us are here. We're going to talk and we're going to bounce ideas off each other. And you can only listen to somebody's opinion so long before you hear somebody disagree with it. And that can make the entire world of the podcast. And that's what I think makes me and Brad so special, because we have a ton of agreements, but at the same time we disagree. And then Dan, when it comes to Michigan, I'm definitely the optimistic Michigan fan. I've been saying for years, Michigan could be this Michigan could be that. And then Dan's like, Jeff, Michigan fucking sucks. So it's like he's more the pessimistic one and brings me down to earth. But yeah, I love talking football. That's why I'm here.
Cool, man. Well, I appreciate you because, like I said in the preseason episode, you kind of got me to kind of branch out and start this myself. Yeah. So for that, I thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you did, dude. It's cool, and I love seeing other people do this. When you reached out to me for questions, I'm like, fuck yeah, dude, let's go. Yeah.
Dude, it's just so much fun because throughout life, in life itself, we're all so busy doing things that maybe we don't like doing. And just to take an hour away, maybe a couple of nights a week, it just soothes the soul a little bit. It just makes you feel a little bit better. So I enjoy doing it, get a chance to talk to my buddies about sports, everything that we enjoy doing and talking about. So I love it. So for that, I really do appreciate you.
Yeah, man. The one thing I've told Brad, and we've said this for years, if nobody listens, that's 100% okay. Me and Brad set aside an hour to talk football once a week because that's what we want to do, and obviously that's what you guys do. All the listeners are great. If nobody ever listens, it's like you're still bonding with your boys talking football. That's something you were going to quote unquote do anyway. So
Exactly. Well, let's get
Yep.
to it. We're 4 days away, baby, from the showdown. So let's get to it. Waking up Monday morning this week, I was feeling fucking different. Something was different. The hairs in my arms, the back of my legs, they were standing up. I was feeling a little tingling in my body. How did you guys feel? Jayce, let's start with you.
Dude, it's a rivalry like none else. I mean, it's the greatest rivalry in sports. And I disagree with that. Have never been a part of this rivalry. Last week, this is the longest rivalry, the greatest, with two of the most historical teams in college football history. It's insane, and for them to be going at it, it's an unreal feeling. Like if you had Ohio State, you still would be this excited because it's still the best rivalry. You still don't know what's going to happen, but this is, possibly two teams going to the playoff, winner for sure going to the playoff. It's a huge game. It's the biggest game so far into the playoff. But dude, I just can't wait. It's the greatest.
Jeff, I know how you're feeling though.
Exposing
a little bit.
Yeah, I wake up Monday morning and I just think to myself, this is it. This is the week. And it almost is the culmination of what's been one hell of a year for me and a lot of other Michigan fans. I think ultimately, I can speak as an NFL fan. I root for the Patriots. I was able to watch a lot of Super Bowls, and 3 of them were just recently. I have 3 children. After every one of my kids came into this world, the Patriots won another Super Bowl. Every single time I woke my child up and told them you're world champions. Like it was such a great feeling. It all falls in comparison to how that win last year in Ann Arbor, some would call it a beatdown, whatever you want to call it, how that felt was magical in every sense of the word. I was in Ann Arbor. We didn't go to the game, but me and my friends, we were out there. We were tailgating, watching the TV, and the snow starts to come down. It was just that magical feeling. And after the game, I don't even care. I shed tears, and I called my daughter, and I was like, "We beat Ohio State. Like that's why you watch the season. That's why you watch the games. It's not to beat fucking Purdue. It's to beat Ohio State." And that's why we're fans, This week feels great. Every day at work, I'm wearing Navy. Got my Michigan hat on like every single day and talking my shit, because it's been a hell of a year, and I feel really confident going into this game too.
Cool, man. Cool. Yeah, I just want to bring up, though, I mean, I was good enough to make the preseason episode, but I couldn't make the game week breakdown episode. What's up with that, dude?
I know, first off, I knew you had a lot going on, and I kind of already promised Andrew that he was going to be on that gig, and he was on last year, did a good job, and that's just kind of how it went down. It wasn't anything personal. And
I'm just giving a shit, brother.
You had last year. Gotta have the same guy on.
Yeah, and I'm thankful I didn't, because maybe you wouldn't have invited me, and now we're having on your show. So
absolutely, I'm just giving you shit, dude. I'm just giving you shit.
No, it's all good.
All right, let's just talk a little season recap. So obviously both teams 11-0. I know I talked about it last week. Last week's game for both teams wasn't going to be easy because no matter what they say or do, there's one game on their mind. So it doesn't matter how ugly it is or how good it looks. All that matters was winning that game. Both teams did that. Now we have 11-0 versus 11-0. Let's get to some. Or actually, I'm gonna do some trivia since I know Jeff loves trivia on his podcast. I got some trivia for us tonight. So let's start with this. What Michigan linebacker fathered 3 sons who played at Ohio State? Do either one of you know this?
All right. I'm guessing this is a long time ago. Give me a rough year on this linebacker. You got one?
The Suns played, all three of them played within the last decade. They were all offensive linemen for Ohio State. And one was a linebacker. One was a linebacker who has a famous photo standing over a Michigan quarterback.
Is it Moeller? Is that the last name?
Nope. Jayce, any ideas?
I know exactly what picture you're talking about.
Well,
the picture. It's number 44 for Ohio State.
Yep.
Yeah.
His name was Zach Boren. The father's name was Mike Boren. Played linebacker at Michigan.
Okay.
So
yeah, I would never got that, but
all three of his boys went to Ohio State, though. Very interesting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that would be heartbreaking for me.
100%.
I mean, I would support my kids to the end of the earth, but that'd be heartbreaking, especially if I was an alum. You know, I'm not, but it would still be heartbreaking.
Not even just an alum. You fucking played for Michigan.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. It doesn't get any different than that, but
that never happened. Never happened.
Right. All right, next one. So obviously Ohio State is famous for Script Ohio, the band, right?
Yep.
Michigan was actually the first band to perform Script Ohio.
Correct.
In what year did this happen?
Jeez. What year did Michigan perform Script Ohio?
It's before World War II.
It was performed as a gift, correct? Mm-hmm. Like as like a presentation gift. Yeah. Yes. Fuck, dude.
I'm gonna say the 30s. 36.
1912.
You're not close. 1932.
I don't even think half of those instruments were invented in 1912.
Right. But yeah, I just saw those two things. And I was like, damn, that's pretty interesting to kind of do for both teams. So I know Jayce has one on here. I already know the answer to it. I don't know if Jeff knows the answer to it. Jayce, go ahead.
Hit me.
I would assume Jeff already knows, but the first team. Who was the first team to implement the winged helmet?
The first team in college football, or the first between these two?
College football.
Is it Delaware?
It's Ohio State.
Delaware wears it. Really?
They wore it for like 1 year in the early 30s, and they went back to it, and then actually Michigan State and what's the Princeton? Was it? Princeton wore it.
Princeton, yeah. They still do. They still do wear that.
What's his name? Oh, one of the big Michigan name guys. I think it might have been Yost.
Fielding Yost,
coached at Princeton and then brought it to Michigan.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Michigan made it famous because they put color on the leather. Like back then, they just made the wing.
They were all just brown.
They just were brown or a different color or different shade of leather or whatever. Mm-hmm. And Michigan made it blue, and the rest is history. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's kind of disgusting that Ohio State did it first. Honestly, I'm kind of want to vomit. Honestly, but
and you said Michigan State did it too.
Yeah, they did. It was
that's even fucking worse.
Yikes!
Gosh.
Well, they both sucked with the wing helmet. Only one team can win with it.
Hey, honestly though, the leather
winningest of all time.
The leather helmet probably wouldn't hurt as bad as the helmets they have now today, though. Just saying. Too much? Too soon? Too soon? Okay, my bad.
Can you imagine the hits that these players would be taking with a leather helmet? They would die. They would literally die on the field.
You know, this is a topic for maybe another day, but I think people wouldn't be launching themselves if they didn't have helmets on. Half the time you see these players lowering their helmets or launching themselves. Like, I played a ton of backyard football. We kind of talked about this pre-pod. I didn't play a lot of actual, like, varsity football or anything. I played a lot of football without a helmet on. I never once launched myself at somebody. You know what I mean? Like, you get low, you tackle. It's like these guys nowadays, they're launching themselves like fucking missiles, dude. And then they wonder, like, targeting what?
Yeah, the helmet is for sure a weapon.
100%.
A weapon.
100%.
All right, let's move on to the actual show now. I got some questions for Jeff. So, Jeff, just give me your thoughts so far this season. What do you like about the Wolverines?
I like a lot. First off, this is kind of like the drum I keep beating, and I'll continue to beat it until the drum stops making music. Since the day that the 2020 season ended, Michigan has been a completely different football team. And all through 2021, I've seen a culture shock, just a revamp that Michigan has brought, and that has continued into this season to an 11-0 start. There's nothing that can take that away at this point, even in a loss to Ohio State, that this team seems to keep clicking, seems to keep moving in the right direction. So I love that. Second thing, I love the fact that my question marks coming into the season were kind of answered in a way. I didn't know if this team's defense would take a massive step back without Aiden Hutchinson, David Ajabo, Dax Hill, Josh Ross. They lost 8 starters on defense. People forget that because this defense has been pretty stinking good. And it's, the quote unquote no-name defense, but guys started to step up. You get pass rushers everywhere. You bring in, transfers or whatever. This defense has been really good. Statistically, as of right now, it's number 1. I don't think it's the number 1 defense, but statistically, based off who they've played and how they've handled those guys, they're there. So I've loved that. And last but not least, I love that this team. For years, what I said is I don't need us to beat Ohio State. I just want to beat everyone else. Everyone else. No more slipping up to Michigan State or Wisconsin or Penn State or any of that other bullshit. Even if you don't beat Ohio State because they're on a completely separate bar, beat everyone else. And as of right now, 11-0 says you have. I love that.
Yeah,
Jeff,
I'm with you.
See, I'm kind of the opposite. I'm kind of the opposite. Not so much about like the Michigan States and the Wisconsins, but if you beat Ohio State, just because it is the biggest rivalry, I think that's a good year. Now,
okay. Maybe you got me confused. Absolutely, that's the measuring stick.
Okay,
but I'm sorry, you cannot beat Ohio State every single year.
No, you're right. I agree.
Yep.
But
so Ohio State is Bama. If your measuring stick is just beating Bama, what are you? Okay? Beat everybody else and make it a coin flip game and you're back. Michigan is getting beat like a drum by everybody in the Big Ten and Ohio State. If Jim Harbaugh had beaten everybody else but only lost to Ohio State, I don't think the hot seat would have been that hot. But he was losing to Michigan State. He was losing all his ranked games. He was losing to Ohio State. He was losing to everybody with a pulse. Anybody. His bowl games. He has it in 2021/2022. Obviously the slip up in Michigan State, it's in the fucking past. But he made the playoffs. He won the Big Ten. He beat Ohio State. I mean, this team seems to be trending up.
Okay. Before we get any further, I do have a question I want to ask Jay specifically. Obviously, you're an alum of Michigan. You're an athlete at Michigan. What does this week feel like on campus? Are you guys still there on campus this week? Because I know Thanksgiving and stuff, but if you are, what does the feel like on campus and around campus?
It's kind of different. We don't have anything like Ohio State does with like the blocking out the M's. I feel like that's kind of childish. But anyway, it is different, and I would say it's more so different within. This might sound douchey, but like the athlete community, Michigan students itself, kind of, dude, I don't know how to put this. Michigan football isn't. They don't live and breathe Michigan football up on campus. Obviously, there's a lot of other things that those students take priority of, and it's not Michigan football for the majority of them, I would say. But for the ones that do, it is incredible. I mean, you have guys like this week is usually our fall break, right? Everybody goes home, but you go to the bars every single night, and you go party because it's rivalry week, and this is the biggest game of the year, and we're all more friendly than we would be, because we're Michigan. You know, we're fighting against Ohio State because at the end of the day, for people on campus, it's bigger than it's bigger than a football game. You know, it's who's a better school, who has whatever. It's just like the whole of Michigan versus the whole of Ohio State. It's much bigger than football at that. But dude, it's incredible. I could go back right now.
Please do.
Yeah,
Please do. As
so
long as you're not at my house on Friday night, I'll be happy. Go the fuck back to Ann Arbor.
You know, I do get those vibes. Obviously, I've never spent a ton of time on campus. You know, I go there for sporting events. That's really it. I've never been to a college party in Ann Arbor, but I do get the vibes because it is such a high institution for just like learning that not everybody gives two shits about how the football team is doing. You know, I'm sure there's a ton of people that when Appalachian State beat Michigan, they're like, I didn't even know there's a football game going on today. Like, it just over their head, you know? And then some people, it's life or death, you know? And to us Walmart Wolverines, as some people like to call us, it's life or death, you know? It makes or breaks a weekend. But I do get the vibes that not everybody in Ann Arbor gives two shits.
Like the streak that Michigan has for the straight games with 100,000 plus fans, whatever. So
Yeah.
during like the last few years when you had like Rich Rod, Brady Hoke, so some of those seasons when you would look up into the student section, it would be empty.
Yeah.
You'd have like the first 15, 20 rows full and then the back of it empty. But everybody else in the stadium was packed. That's like kind of the fan base that Michigan is. It's a much more older, I don't want to say elite, but it is. Like it's a much more older elite crowd that loves watching football. And so I told Jared this story because me and him went down to the Ohio State Michigan State game last year at Ohio State, and it was a completely different atmosphere at a football stadium that I've never experienced. So that was my first college football game not at Michigan Stadium, not at the Big House.
Yeah.
And that was like eye-opening because it was awesome. The energy for everyone in the stadium, not just student section, not just the players, but every single fan was into it. And that's the one thing that I don't see at Michigan, which I would love to see. But at the same time, dude, they are loyal fans at Michigan. They're so loyal, but they're just not the crowd that wants to get up and yell and scream. I'm going to sit back and actually watch this football game because I love Michigan. So it's just a little bit different. I think some of the students are kind of like that too, but they just don't go. They're not as into it. They're not as bought in.
Yeah.
All right, going back to Jayce's first comment about blocking out the M's. One, it's dumb as hell. Two, us dumbass Buckeye fans usually forget an M in every single post we make. So
Yes.
It's just so stupid. It is the dumbest tradition that I've ever seen, and I wish it would go away. It's just dumb.
I get doing it in Michigan. Like every time Michigan's written, if you want to, I get it. Whatever.
Yes.
You want to forget the M. But like in every single thing, I'm like, this is brutal.
That's just too much work.
We're not smart enough. Fuck, we're not smart enough.
Yeah.
All right, enough with the Michigan talk and all that stuff. Let's get to the meat of it. If you guys have any questions, by the way, throughout this for me, feel free to hop in because I have plenty of questions for you guys. But obviously, the biggest question going into this game is Blake Corum. Jeff, I don't know how well versed you are with the media and kind of following different people on Twitter, but what is the word right now out of Ann Arbor as of tonight about Blake Corum?
Yeah, I follow tons of beat writers. I listen to, pretty much all of Jim Harbaugh's radio shows / interviews that he does after the game. He does one with John Jansen. He does two, actually, with John Jansen. He does one with, I believe his name's Brad Galloop out of Detroit for ABC. I've watched that one. I've seen his two post-game pressers. And as of right now, he has given zero update on Blake Corum. Zero. So I don't expect him to either. I don't expect anybody to know that Blake Corum is or is not playing until I think official kickoff's like 12:07. I think that's when you'll find out. Maybe a little prior, whether or not you see him in full pads, but I would assume he'd be out at least warming up in sweatpants and a hoodie or whatever. So I truly believe it'll be late kickoff before we know. You're not going to know either. And, it's sad because I would love to know just to get, my thought process right. But as of right now, I'm assuming he's going to play.
Yeah. Thing is, that's how Harbaugh is, though. Harbaugh likes to play games. He always plays games. And especially in a game like this, situation like this, he's going to. But that's just how he is.
To what advantage does it give Michigan to tell anybody whether or not Blake Corum is or is not going to play? There's no advantage to it. If Jim Harbaugh doesn't feel he can gain an advantage, he's not going to do it.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, right, the only advantage would, to have Ohio State, try to – how do you game plan for a running back that you don't even know if he's going to play? Game plan if he is playing?
That's for Ohio State to decide. That's not for Michigan to decide.
Right, but that's an advantage.
That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
So you keep them on their toes.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's to Harbaugh. He's thinking to himself, I don't have an advantage by telling these guys he's gonna or not gonna play. I have an advantage of keeping it up in the air. Yeah, that's what we agree here. Yeah, why say something?
Here's the funny thing, though. If Jim Harbaugh came out and said, yeah, Blake Corum's not going to play, as an Ohio State person, I'd be like, he's fucking bullshitting us. Even if he does come out and say it, you're not going to believe it regardless. So he can honestly come out and say it straight to our face. Blake Corum is not suiting up this week.
I don't know if there's rules against that, but to my knowledge, nobody's ever really done that.
There are no rules to it. It's not like the NFL where you have an injury report. There's no rules. You can say whatever the hell you want.
So Michigan has a starting linebacker, and he hasn't played all year. Nakai Hill-Green, I think his name is, has not taken a snap. Nobody knows why. Nobody. We assume it's injury. There is nothing. Eric All, it just kind of went around Twitter, and beat writers are talking about it. I think he might be out for the year, and that was the rumor. All of a sudden, a month goes by. Eric All posts a picture of himself in a hospital bed. It's like Harbaugh never said a word about that. With kids, you don't necessarily have to, So it is what it is. We're not going to know. And, nobody's even talking about Donovan Edwards. I just want one of the two. I don't need both. I'll take both. Don't get me wrong. Please, for the love of God, both. I just need one. Give me one.
I just want an update on both.
Yeah.
Just an update. I don't know what
you're not going to get one. You're not going to get one.
I will say, though, as an Ohio State fan, Ohio State is going to prepare 100% that Blake Corum is there 100%. Because they're going to do They're going to do the same thing regardless if he's there or not. Because that's Michigan. That's Harbaugh. That's what he does. Corum is just a much more elite running back than anybody else in that room. And another thing is Ohio State, with their two running backs, are almost in the same predicament as Michigan with their running backs. All these running backs are banged up. So are we going to see freshmen running backs playing against each other this week in the horseshoe? It's honestly intriguing, but we'll see. We'll see what happens.
It's intriguing for you guys because you have a Heisman candidate at quarterback.
Yeah.
We do not. It's not intriguing to me. I'm like, yeah, no thanks.
You get a nice plan B.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm glad you said that, Jeff, because I've been seeing all week is that Ohio State fans are like, oh, well, we've been playing without Jackson Smith and Jigba all year.
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up. Blake Corum to Michigan is what C.J. Stroud is to Ohio State.
Correct.
If we didn't have C.J. Stroud, we would be fucked. We would be fucked. And the same thing for Michigan. We can play without Jackson. We have other receivers. But Blake Corum is Michigan. So it's not the same comparison. Not even close. In
the middle 2000s, the Chargers are not batting an eye of losing Phillip Rivers. They're crying themselves to sleep when they lose Damian Tomlinson. It's just different. It's just different. And the way Michigan is built, they're not a throwing team. They have a rushing attack, and it's the best rushing attack in the country, in my opinion. Don't matter what the stats say. Just like Michigan has the number one statistical defense, and that doesn't mean they're the best defense. Michigan might not have the best statistical run game. It is the best run game. You know they're going to run it, and it does not matter. They force their way through. They bully you. They make you play a brand of football that you're not comfortable playing. We need Blake Corum out there, period.
Facts.
Yeah. I mean, I personally want to see him out there 100%. I wish both teams were 100%. But
yeah,
it is what it is. It is what it is. But let's move on. Let's. So you kind of talked about the season so far and kind of what you've liked about it. What has been a letdown this year so far for you?
JJ McCarthy. I mean, I'm not one of those guys that likes to bang on kids. I really don't. But my problem is with the Michigan fan base. You know, Cade McNamara did not play an elite brand of football, but he played complementary football to what the Michigan football team needed, and he played it at a very high level. He completed passes when he needed to. He came up clutch when he needed to. He was tough as nails, and he was really dependable. Not saying JJ's not those things, but I was told or led to believe that Michigan would be something different with JJ McCarthy at the helm. I listened to your guys' podcast last week. I've seen this stuff going around Twitter. They're the same quarterback. They are not different. Statistically, it's the same guy. And the one difference that I thought for sure we would get is JJ's legs. Waldo, where you at? Where have those been? Where's JJ's legs been? Non-existent. That's for fucking damn sure. I have not seen a difference maker with his legs. I thought for sure we'd at least get that. We haven't. We've gotten a lackluster passing attack, tons of overthrows. Seems like when he does throw it, the guys are dropping it. Maybe he's just throwing lasers at these guys and he needs to get some touch on the football. That would probably be the case. But the one thing I will say, and I'll defend him a little bit, he seems to be pretty poised. He seems to be pretty relaxed, and he hasn't turned the ball over like he did last year in those crucial spots and cost us the Michigan State game. It does seem like he's kind of gotten that under control, but also that's probably a little bit of hardball saying, listen, man, we don't need you to be Patrick Mahomes. We don't need you to be Tom Brady. We don't need you to try and win us a game. We need you to not lose us a game because see Blake, see Donovan, they're gonna take us to the end zone every single time. Jake Moody's gonna punt this through the uprights every single time. Don't give the other team those extra possessions. And that's what we've been really good at. So to that credit, it's fine. But it's been disappointing that I didn't get something that had been advertised to me differently. You know what I mean?
So what is the positive of making the change at quarterback? Like why was that a necessary change? To make it such a choice and to have those two compete until game 3. Mm-hmm. Like why is that? Why was it so important for them to decide like that?
I don't know. You know, I thought it was a done deal once Cade became the captain. I thought it was a done deal. I thought Cade's the starter. You know, I had Jared on the preseason show. I said, Cade's the quarterback for game 1, game 5, Ohio State. I thought Cade was the guy this year. Then after this year, I had a feeling Jim would probably be like, listen, Cade, 2 years, man, you were great. We got to roll with JJ now. You know, I think there's a little bit of that. You landed a 5-star quarterback, you got to play him. Maybe some of that. You know, they brought in Shea Patterson, that transfer. He was a 5-star. You know, there was kids that were recruited. They weren't 5-stars, but they were 4s. You know, McCaffrey and Milton. He was bringing those. You know, he brought in Shea over those guys, and Shea continued to play over those guys even when Shea didn't look great. I think Jim Harbaugh is just kind of like a precedent guy. But I thought the number one precedent for him would be like playing a senior, playing a captain. Didn't work. And to be fair, how bad was Cade to start the year? Not great. He was really bad. Really bad. He lost it. He didn't lose the job because he never lost the job. JJ took the job from him in that Hawaii game. Was that the right game to showcase it? Probably not. Hawaii's fucking miserable. But it is what it is. And Cade ended up getting hurt anyway. But to answer your question, Jared, it's you can't not think that's a letdown. If I told you we were eating filet mignon and I pull out a New York strip or a sirloin and it's an inch thick, you're like, bro, steak. It's cooked well, but you told me we were getting filet mignon. You know what I mean? That's where we're at. That's where we're at. It just turned out to be the same exact thing, and I was led to believe it wasn't.
I got you. I got a quick question regarding JJ and his legs. Do you think the reason for that is because of Cade getting hurt? Is why we haven't seen it as much?
Maybe. I don't know. I can't imagine that's the case. If you're a special athlete like that, you play to your strengths. Is Lamar Jackson on a contract year still running just because he has whoever in the back? No, you have to make yourself available. If that is your strength, you play to your strengths. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter if Davis Warren's backing you up or not, or Alex Orji or whoever the heck is next man up. No, that's the reason, quote unquote, you got the job.
That's why I think some of it falls on Harbaugh's back. I really do, because if you're going to come out and you're going to make a call like that, and you're going to start a 5-star guy who hasn't played a full season instead of a guy who just led you to the college football playoff, utilize him, utilize his strengths. Like you said, like you can still have a running game like that is still as efficient and still as powerful and still play to your quarterback's strengths. And I think that some of the blame should go, I'd say most of it should go to Harbaugh. But at the same time, the times that that McCarthy has gotten the chance to shine, I mean, he hasn't taken advantage of that. So it kind of goes back and forth. You know, how many opportunities you're going to give this kid to shine, and he's not going to capitalize. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. I think you're right with that. If Harbaugh feels like he's giving him the opportunities and you're getting 50% passing, you can't get 50% passing on 45 attempts.
Yeah.
You know, CJ Stroud, he has 45 attempts. He's getting these 70%. You know what I mean? Like Harbaugh's like, I'm giving you 16. You're giving me 8 completions. I'm not giving you 40. You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense.
All right, quick thing. Was that guy's last name Orgy or Orgy?
It's Orgy. It's Alex Orgy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It just threw me off for a second there. I'm like,
no, it's Alex Orgy.
Okay. He's got to be having a hell of a time in college.
He scored. I think he scored against Colorado State, and I believe Robert Griffin was calling the game.
I remember.
I know Robert Griffin. I know Robert Griffin III was calling the game. I just don't remember who was against. And when he scored on a rushing touchdown, he's like, "There's an orgy in the end zone." It obviously got some kickback, but no, dude, it's Alex Orgy, number 10.
Okay, yeah. All right. Well, let's just expand more on this passing game or JJ McCarthy.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think it's all JJ? Is it more JJ, or is it just the passing game, the concepts, the routes, the receivers as well? Like, what are your thoughts on the passing game in general?
Let me clear this up first. The number one reason the passing game is not 300 yards a game is because it does not need to be. That is not what Michigan is. They are a run-first, dominate you at the line of scrimmage team. I want to make that very clear. I think that, and most people would have to agree with that. The second reason is I just don't think that it's been well schemed up, as you just alluded to. The coaching, in the passing game, maybe that's not their cup of tea. Josh Gaddis left. His cup of tea was speed and space, and you kind of seen that it was formed into a power run game that maybe Harbaugh wanted based off of Hassan Haskins and that dominating offensive line. And with Gaddis gone, maybe the offensive passing attack took a step back. Maybe with Gaddis here, JJ would look better. Maybe the guys we have in charge, Matt Weiss and Sharon Moore, maybe those aren't passing guys. I would love to see Harbaugh nail down that in the future, because don't get me wrong, I'm the biggest fan of this run game because I haven't seen anybody stop it, but there's got to be a time where it does come to a screeching halt. Obviously, it did against Georgia, but again, I've defended that. That's a one-of-one Hall of Fame level defense. 8 guys went pro. I mean, until it's legitimately stopped, you keep doing it. But at the same time, do you want to wait for that period of time? Because it might get ugly, you know? So I'd love to see them invest in some kind of passing coordinator. I think that is a part of it. I don't think it's all JJ. I don't think it's all the receivers. But I have seen receivers drop balls, and I've seen JJ overthrow receivers like crazy.
Jayce, what are your thoughts on the passing game?
Well, I think JJ is – I think everything is 100% spot on. I've always given the benefit of the doubt to Michigan receivers, but when you look across the sidelines and you see the room of receivers that Ohio State has, it's tough. I mean, and that does help out a Heisman level quarterback like CJ Stroud. Mm-hmm. Those wide receivers better, and in return, CJ Stroud makes those guys better also. Now, who can make JJ better at that level? I don't think any of them can. I mean, maybe Ronnie Bell, right? I mean,
yeah, Ronnie
had a bad injury, but came back and is still playing. But I mean, I feel like JJ could make these guys look better. The rooms are so different, and honestly, you can't even compare them. You can't even compare the wide receivers. But I don't think. I think, dude, it's got to be different. I mean, for this game, it has to be different. Something has to change. I mean, I don't think that you can go down to Columbus and just do the same game plan and the same entire game plan for the whole game and expect to win, especially if Corm's out and Edwards is iffy, or if Corm is even iffy. I just don't think that's going to happen. I think something different needs to happen on the outside, and I hope to God it works. I hope to God that something clicks and it works for one game. That's all we need. One game.
You know, last year in the Ann Arbor matchup, I think they got 3 deep passes. They had the flea flicker wheel route. They had the late one to Cornelius Johnson down the right sideline. And I believe there was one more to Roman Wilson in there somewhere. You only need maybe one a quarter. Again, I want to make something very well known. I think Blake and Donovan are going to play, and I speak as if that's going to happen. That's why I think you only need one a quarter. If those guys are out, the entire conversation we've had changes completely. That's why I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to prep this podcast as if they're not going to play, because it's like, then you're going to get real pessimistic, Jeff. And I don't like to be pessimistic. I like to be very optimistic and thinking that we have a chance to win. So, one big play a quarter. Roman Wilson started off the season very hot. Where's he been? You know, last year, Hassan Haskins scored 5 touchdowns. Anybody know who the other one was? A.J. Henning. Where's he been lately? A.J. Henning's a playmaker. I haven't seen enough of him. Ronnie Bell's been great. Luke Schoonmaker has been one of JJ's favorite targets at the tight end. He was beat up last week. He didn't play. Definitely need him in Columbus this weekend. I think that is not being talked about enough, as Schoonmaker's connection with JJ. But ultimately, like you said, Andrell, you got to get one of these, man. Cornelius Johnson hasn't had a big impact this year. He needs to get one a quarter. One big play a quarter that's not through the running game, and Michigan has a really good chance to pull up an upset.
I agree. That's what I was telling Jared. I said the only way Michigan beats Ohio State this week is with big plays. They have to have more big plays. I think Michigan has a chance.
And they did last year, shockingly.
Yeah, and I don't think Michigan beat Ohio State in the trenches and controlling the ball and doing this and doing that and just playing their normal game. They need to have big plays, and I think that's the only way. But
you know, last year going into the game, Cade McNamara, he was asked, you know, how do you feel about this game? He goes, we're looking to take advantage of Ohio State, you know, and he ended up being right about that. JJ was asked, you know, what to expect, and he says there's more meat on this bone, and it's all coming off on Saturday. That tells me there's something else there. I'm just gonna believe it. Whether he's right or not, tells me there's something else there. Does it work? That remains to be seen. But I'm assuming there's something else there.
All right. Do you guys have anything Buckeye questions? If not, I'll keep it rolling.
Dude, I got plenty of Buckeye questions. I can start hitting you whenever you're ready.
All right. Well, let's just go back. Let's go back and forth then. Let's have some fun with this.
Yeah. You want some season questions? Or you want some game questions? Because I got a couple of each.
Let's start season first, and then we'll start really beating it down on the games.
Is there an Ohio State team that you can compare this one to? Do you think?
Oh man, let me think about this for a quick second. Hold up.
You're good. I have a rough team in mind.
I got to think about a team that didn't lose. I would say 2016. 2016 team.
Okay.
Team that the last time these two teams matched up top 5. Well, last year they were top 5, but the time prior, JT Barrett, the offense actually had a lot of questions. The defense was actually pretty good that year. A lot of big names on defense. The game was also in the horseshoe, but the year prior is when they had a letdown year, when they had all the guys coming back from 2014. 2015, they got beat, didn't make the championship, so kind of a letdown in Columbus. The year prior, everyone thought, offense is going to be solid, but I think the most questions this year are on the offensive side. And I think the defense is solid. The defense is, I know you're very shocked by this. The offense has more questions than the defense does this year. And I told you this before we even got on the show. I said I watch every single second of Ohio State, and I don't just watch it. I break it down. Like I actually watch specific groups and how they're doing each play. The offense has more questions this year than the defense does. The defense is leaps and bounds better than it was last year. But heading into this game, I think this team reminds me of, because there's so much uncertainty going into this game. You don't really know what's going to happen. Prior years and years after, you knew Ohio State was probably going to blow the doors off of Michigan. This year, it's different for that reason. There's a lot of questions going into this game, honestly, on both sides, both teams, both sides of the ball. There's a lot of questions that haven't been answered because of, you could say, lack of schedule. The schedule has been very lacking this year, both sides. So to give a fair assessment for either team, I think it's hard for the outside people like us. But I mean, you just put me in the spot. I had to say 2016. That's the first thing I could think of. They had a letdown year prior, came back with question marks, and let's see if they can get answered.
For me, I think it more looks like the 2018 team. Very pass heavy, very quarterback reliant. Don't have a true number one running back. Gonna get it from a couple of different people. At that time, obviously JK was on the team, but it was still a little bit of Mike Weber too. At that time, it wasn't just JK's team. And you have a hot Michigan team coming into town, wanting to shut them up. Gives me a lot of 2018 vibes. Now, hopefully for Michigan's sake, it's not 2018 vibes, because I'll have to check out of the world for a little while.
There's one difference between that team and this team. The defense is way better this year than it was in 2018. That's the one difference. That's why I didn't say 2018, because that defense that year was bad. This defense is not bad.
Okay. Who's the MVP so far this season? You're probably going to go CJ Stroud, which would make sense. I'm going to test you to say somebody else.
It's not CJ Stroud. I wouldn't give you that first answer anyways. I'm going to say it's Tommy Eichenberg / Lathan Ransom on defense. Those would be my co-MVPs.
Okay.
Because like we already talked about, the offense for Ohio State, that's the offense. What's the one thing going into this year that had to change? The defense. And those two guys are why the defense has changed. Last year in the Michigan game, linebackers aren't triggering. They're catching offensive linemen. This year, bang, they're meeting at the line of scrimmage. That has a lot to do with Tommy Eichenberg. If we weren't going players, though, I would say our defensive coordinator, Jim Knowles, is probably our MVP. But player-wise, it's Tommy Eichenberg, Lathan Ransom. Lathan Ransom, he's quiet. Next thing you know, he makes 4 splash plays in a row, and it's like, damn, he just changed this ball game. So Tommy Eichenberg, Lathan Ransom are my MVPs this year, and CJ Stroud probably is 3-4, number 3 or number 4 for me.
MVP for best name has to be Steel Chambers. Has to
100%.
be. This is the greatest dream ever.
You got Marvin's boy on your team. Is that Chris Chambers' boy?
I don't think so.
God, Steel Chambers. I've asked you this question, but it wasn't on your podcast, so I'm going to ask it again. And maybe your answer is different. It's been a while since we talked. Does losing to Michigan last year make this year feel different, feel better? That if hypothetically speaking, if you guys win, I don't think you are, but hypothetically speaking, if you beat Michigan, does it feel better this year?
I don't remember what my answer was, but
I do.
100,
go ahead.
100%, it makes you feel fucking good this year. And I probably said it makes you feel good every year. It doesn't matter what happened the year prior, but
correct. You did say that.
I think my tone has changed. Like I said, Monday morning, I woke up feeling different. And I think this, if at 4 p.m. Saturday, it has Ohio State with the higher number than it says for Michigan, I'm going to be absolutely unbearable. Don't be around me. And years prior, I wouldn't have been that way. But this year, I will be. So for that reason alone, yes, it will be different 100%.
And, I mean, this isn't easy. It's got to be more important this year, right?
Than years prior, last year?
Than ever before, really.
This is the biggest game in the history of Ohio State versus Michigan for so many reasons.
Lots of reasons.
These are the biggest game in the history of this rivalry.
Michigan wins, are on a win streak. Michigan wins, it starts to challenge who's the top dog in the program. Michigan wins, they're going to the Big Ten championship again. Michigan wins, they're probably going to the playoffs again. What does that mean for Ohio State? That's so many question marks for Ohio State that, to be honest, they're not used to. I agree. It's huge. You know, for Michigan, and I'll ask both of you guys this. Because to be honest, I've kind of been, this is tearing me up. If Michigan loses, where do they go from here?
Jayce, you want to start with this one? Because
take it away. Where do they go from here with a loss?
If Michigan loses this game, yikes.
Yeah.
If they lose because, okay, I'm going to speak in terms of that Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are playing. Okay,
yeah.
That's what I'm going to talk about. If Michigan loses with those guys, I think you have to question what their offensive philosophy has been throughout the whole entire year.
Yeah.
It's honestly so hard because I mean, the schedules this year for both teams, you really have no idea what these teams are actually going to show you Saturday. And it's really hard to see because, like you said, Michigan's statistics for defense, best in the country. Yeah. But I go back to 9 of the 11 teams that they played on offense are 85th or worse ranked in offense. So, like, obviously they're good to still be number one. They're obviously a really, really good defense. But are they better than last year's? I don't know. I think time will tell. But where Michigan goes if they lose this game, I mean, it cements that Ohio State is still the top dog, 100%. It maybe shows that Ohio State had a letdown of the year and kind of started to overlook past Michigan. And then the fact that it depends if they blow Michigan out on Saturday, Ohio State has to bring that same mindset every year, and they'll continue to do that until something changes. I'm not saying last year was.
I've always had an issue.
Michigan beat Ohio State's ass last year. Go ahead, Jayce.
Sorry, I thought you were done. My fault.
You're good.
I've always had an issue with Harbaugh. And it's not so much how he runs the offense or how he puts together a team. It's more so the culture of Michigan football. I said this right when he got hired, and the first couple years in, the culture was different in a bad way because he brings the same culture of, and this is how it was 6 years ago when I was in school, where Michigan thinks Michigan is just better than everyone. Like, it's because it's one of the best academic institutions in the. and the history of Michigan athletics runs so deep, and they were so good. And every other Michigan athletics team is really good, and they win national championships and they win Big Ten championships. But that is the culture I think is toxic, especially in games like this, because for a Michigan team for so long, especially when Harbaugh was there, I didn't feel like they thought that this was as big of a rivalry as it is. And I found something today, Harbaugh's press conference today, where he said, "I feel grateful to play Ohio State." Jeff, I don't know if you saw that, but he said
I guess I didn't catch that.
it was like one of those. It was a video on ESPN. It was like in the news, like on the news channel of ESPN, and I looked at it, and he said he's grateful to play Ohio State in this situation because of where both teams are and how good both teams are, and he spent time praising how good Ohio State is and how good their coaches are. And now I'm not saying that you don't do that, but his energy in the presser, and dude, it was so irking. I hated it because it's not just another game. Like, and yes, you have to appreciate your opponent, but do it after the game or do it whatever.
Yeah.
Not 4 days before the game. Like that, I just don't think Harbaugh, I love him to death, but I don't think the culture that he creates there is a winning culture to beat Ohio State and in anything in the future. Like, I think he does a really good job with every other game before Ohio State, but the culture's different. I don't know. It's that's my one thing. So to answer your question about where does Michigan go, I think there has to be a change. I don't think that keeping everything the same with the coaching staff, I don't think that would be a good idea.
You know, with a lot of things you just said from 2015 to 2020, I wouldn't have a rebuttal. It would be hard to. But I find myself disagreeing with you over the last year and a half. This team's on the up and up, man.
I will say last year surprised me because I really didn't. Well, obviously the last 17 out of 20, whatever, however many times has lost in a row, I didn't expect them to win, but I always wanted them to win. But it did surprise me that they won last year. It really did.
Yeah.
But
I wouldn't say I was. I mean, it's hard not to be surprised because they hadn't won in so long. But I did go into the game very optimistic, and I posed the question on my podcast, and to everybody I could talk to, I said, "What happens when Michigan does X, Y, Z?" And I'm no genius, but I said, "What happens when they get after C.J. Stroud? What happens when they run the ball and they can't be stopped? What happens?" And look what happened. I mean, what happens when the weather's not perfect conditions on Saturday? What happens when Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards are both out there and they seem to be full form? What happens? What happens if CJ Stroud turns the ball over? Gets a little uncomfortable out there. I don't know. It seems like Michigan has created this anti-Ohio State team. It seems like they're built to just beat Ohio State right now. Now, mind you, they beat through the rest of the Big Ten because at this point, they're just better than the rest of the Big Ten. But as far as where they go from here, I'd like to assume that they can maybe build on this year regardless of whether it's a win or a loss. Obviously, you'd have to know that you got to get better at the passing game. But the run game it's mint. I don't know. So it's something that's been weighing on me because obviously I want Michigan to win, but at the same time, if they lose, then what? That's
a good point.
It's the biggest question because I'm almost afraid to have this letdown again.
I don't even have an answer for you what that means. I don't have a good answer. I have no idea.
Yeah.
It could go one of two ways. Because question for you guys, Michigan fans, was canceling the 2020 game the best thing that ever happened to this program? Now let me break it down for you quick, real quick.
Yeah.
the last time Ohio State beat Michigan going into that game was 2019. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of those players that played in 2021 never experienced actually being on the field to play Michigan and beat them. So was that 2-year gap the best thing for Michigan? And is that why we see Michigan where they are at today?
I've said this a lot of times to a lot of people, podcast, non-podcast, just talking. COVID was horrific, dude, for a lot of reasons. Okay. Don't even like to talk about COVID. I like to pretend it never happened. But there is nobody on this planet that benefited from COVID more than the Michigan football team. Nobody. We didn't play Ohio State that year. Argue about whatever you want or how duck and game. I don't give a fuck at this point. They didn't play Ohio State that year. They gave the extra year of eligibility. A lot of Michigan fans didn't even realize what was about to happen. A lot of Ohio State fans didn't know what was about to happen. Michigan was starting 4- and 5-year starters on the offensive line last year against Ohio State. NFL-ready guys. Okay? They started veteran running backs who had played 4+ years. You know, you're starting quarterbacks that are now a senior. The amount of veteran leadership on that Michigan team last year, unparalleled. Aiden Hutchins had no business returning to Michigan. He was a top 10 pick 2 years ago. He had no business returning, but wanted to because that COVID year was so horrific and he had the injury of that year. And I don't know if not playing Ohio State was that important, but getting your ass beat by every team in the Big Ten that year was super important. It changed the culture. It completely changed. When that team finally left that field and went into the locker room and had to look themselves in the mirror that they weren't going to play another down that year, no bowl game, no Michigan or no Ohio State. There were some other games that were canceled too. Ohio State was not the only game canceled, as some people like to allude to. At the end of the day, it's the best thing that's ever happened in Michigan football because in that time, they had the second best record in all of college football. There's one team that has a better record, and they won the national championship. So, Michigan's doing all right.
That's fair. All right. You have any more questions regarding season, or do you want to start getting into the game?
No, that's it for the season.
Okay. I'll ask the first one then. So we talked a little bit about schedule for both teams and how it's been kind of weak, not really any test. How concerned are you as Michigan fans that this is going to be the first real test for Michigan this year?
Jayce, you want to take this one away or you want me to take it away?
Yeah, I'll go. I mean, Michigan, regarding who they play, they're going to come out, like you said before, they're going to come out and do the same game plan that they always have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, I don't think that they train differently based on who they play. So I think the training stays the same. And that's why I think you've seen the what they've done to the teams that they're supposed to be doing to. They're beating teams by 30. They're putting up 40 points a game, right? Like, those are things that you practice. You don't play down to the level of your competition, right? So I don't think that it's going to be that big of a difference going into Columbus and playing it. But I think that it might take a few drives to get used to the level of play across the line. Now, I'm not going to say that it's going to be hard or more difficult, but I think they're going to be surprised by the level of play. I shouldn't say surprised. They're going to know how Ohio State is. But I think that the extra level of focus, and I think that Michigan, I don't know, man. What do you got, Jeff?
Are you concerned this is Ohio State's first test of the year?
That's very fair. No, 100% yes.
Yeah.
That's why both teams.
100%. As long as you realize that.
Yes.
Because
100.
our top opponents this year, both are Penn State. Your second best opponent this year is Notre Dame. Our second best opponent is Illinois. Illinois just got their third loss, and we gave it to them. Notre Dame's had their third loss since Halloween. I'm not saying Notre Dame isn't better than Illinois because I believe they are. I think Notre Dame's got a great chance to beat USC this weekend. But the notion that Michigan has played absolutely dog shit opponents this year and Ohio State hasn't, it's like, let's pump the brakes. I think these schedules are both very weak because the Big Ten was down this year. It wasn't a traditional Big Ten. Wisconsin was piss poor. They fired their coach. Nebraska, piss poor, fired their coach. Minnesota didn't have a pulse until they were good for like a cup of coffee in September/October, but they're even down. Michigan State projected to be something this year. Tons of transfers. They don't have a pulse. They're horrific. The Big Ten is so horrifically bad that both of these teams are going to get a culture shock. I mean, I don't like to be that guy, but like 2 weeks ago, you struggled with Northwestern. Michigan's light years better than Northwestern. We struggled with Rutgers at one point. Yeah, it looked ugly, but we destroyed them. Michigan struggled with Maryland. Both of us have had our times this year where we've struggled with opponents. I think this is a low-scoring game. I think this is a culture shock for both teams. Ohio State has the slight advantage because they're going to be at home this weekend. You know, that's going to hopefully get them off to a hot start for your sake. But, you said this on my podcast, you hope Michigan, for my sake, that Michigan wins the toss because you think Ohio State's going to come out hot. I think Michigan's going to try and come out hot because if they can get a lead, that's where they're the best. So, am I worried it's going to be the first real test? Absolutely. But I think it's Ohio State's first test. So it's like, it's kind of irrelevant to me because I truly believe both these teams are going to punch each other in the mouth often and early and often.
Yeah, and that's why I put in your guys' episode last night, under 57 is the lock of the century. The first quarter is literally we're gonna feel each other out. First quarter is feeling, it's like a boxing match. We're feeling each other out in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
Once the second round hits, it's fucking go time for both teams.
Yeah.
Because you're not gonna see, they haven't seen people as athletic, as fast, as physical, as dominant, as well coached as they're gonna see on Saturday on both sides of the football. It's gonna take time to adjust to that. So, yes, Ohio State is in the same exact boat as Michigan with the real test, 100%. And being in Columbus is a huge factor, and I think it helps Ohio State out tremendously.
Absolutely.
All right, you got one, Jeff?
As far as it comes to the game, I think the weather is going to be pretty shitty. I think it's calling for about 45 degrees and rainy. But do you think the weather is going to affect this game?
Not one bit.
Okay.
Not one bit. All right, before we move on, there's a question in the chat, okay? This is for both of us, for all of us.
Hit it.
Is the winner of this game going to be embarrassed like Michigan State was in the playoffs due to the lack of competition this year? I'm going to say right now, no. These are the two best teams in the country. Go ahead, Jeff.
The winner of this game is likely to play TCU. If Michigan plays TCU, 31-14. Ohio State plays TCU, 51-21. I mean, just because of the game styles. I think TCU is good. Don't get me wrong. But they're not more physical than Michigan, and they can't outscore Ohio State. It's a bad matchup either way. Georgia, on the other hand, could Georgia out-physical Michigan? 100%. Could they out-physical the finesse passing attack that Ohio State could bring? 100%. Do either of them get blown out in the first round? 0% chance.
Jayce, anything? I love how he threw a finesse. I love how you had to take a shot at Ohio State in there. I love that. Jayce, go ahead.
Me?
Dude,
the finesse passing team of Ohio State.
Oh, okay, I did.
Dude, college football is so different this year. The last few years, there's always a force that everybody's looking up to and saying, oh my gosh, this is the best team in the country, hands down. This year, Georgia's been number one, but they haven't been number one all year. And I don't think they're as an unstoppable force as everyone, or as teams. I'd say this year of college football is pretty easy, and it could go either way. So to answer that question, No, I don't think they're going to get embarrassed. I think that every game, honestly, no matter who's in the playoff, is going to be a good game because the level of play is much more even this year.
I tend to agree. All right, I know we already talked about it quite a bit, but Jeff, how does Michigan win this football game?
Yeah, my keys to victory have been very simple. Last year, they were 100% the more disciplined team. You got to be that again. It's tough on the road, but you have to be the more disciplined team. Last year that you had Ohio State players pulling off helmets in the end zone from scuffles and pushing and shoving. Michigan was basically the more disciplined. Hey, you want to throw that? You want to pull the helmet off? We're not going to retaliate. Where a couple of years ago, if you remember, Michigan players were pulling shoes off of guys. Be the more disciplined team. That will go a long way. Second thing, dominate the trenches, which I believe they will do. Control the line of scrimmage. Obviously, the run game's got to be good. Again, I'm talking as if Blake and Donovan are ready to go, or at least one of the two. Control the line of scrimmage, run the ball at an effective level. And third and final, and I believe this is going to be huge. Nobody's talking about this. Make CJ Stroud uncomfortable, because when he is uncomfortable, he looks incredibly soft. He doesn't respond well to it. He looks like I wouldn't draft him in the first round. I know that's kind of tough for you to hear. I know you're a Buckeye guy, but there's plenty of instances on tape where this guy looks rattled and he doesn't respond to it well. So, his favorite play from the Michigan game last year was a play that was called back. That's the kind of guy he is. So, Michigan makes CJ very uncomfortable, make a turnover or two, control the line of scrimmage, and play disciplined football. They can come out with a W in Columbus for the first time since, Tom Brady was there.
I agree. I mean, I think the biggest key this week is going to be Michigan's defense. I mean, if they can defend C.J. Stroud, if they can put pressure on C.J. Stroud and defend the passing game and control the trenches, like you said, Jeff, I mean, I think that's going to be the difference maker because we know it's going to be a low-scoring game. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game. Jeff, you think it's going to be a low-scoring game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's going to be a defensive battle, and it's about time Michigan's defense shows up to defend this team. That's the biggest key.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
Jared?
What about you, though? Keys of victory for Ohio State there.
For Ohio State, let's see. One, obviously, stop the run game. Make J.J. McCarthy beat you.
Do you think that's possible?
To stop the run game? To stop it? No. To slow it down? Yes. I don't think it's possible to stop down a run game that an offense that all they do is run the ball. You can't stop it. You can only slow it down. Second, Ohio State has to be able to run the ball. If you look back over the last 20 to 25 years, the team that has more rushing yards in this game wins this game. So 1, stop the run. 2, make sure you have success running the ball. 3, win first down on offense and defense. On offense, make sure you have 2nd and 5, 2nd and 6. On defense, make sure Michigan's playing in 2nd and 10. Win first down. I think whoever wins first down wins this ballgame. I know a lot of times you think about who wins third down, who wins fourth down, but you don't win those downs unless you win first down. So you have to win first down on Saturday to win the ballgame. And it all comes down to the run game. I'm not going to talk about the pass game because Ohio State's going to have the pass game.
Yeah.
They're going to be able to throw the ball. It just is what it is. But can they run the ball when they need to? That's the key. And can they slow Michigan down enough to make them have to throw the ball in 3rd and 6, 3rd and 7? That's the biggest thing into this game, is making that happen.
Yeah, I think the thing that I've heard a lot is Michigan has to play the perfect game. I don't think that's true. In 2013, they were 3 touchdown dogs with Devin Gardner at quarterback, Brady Hoke at home. And Michigan played the perfect game up until the last play of the game, and they went for 2, and they didn't get it. Those were 2 totally different teams where Ohio State is just so much more talented and so much better coached, and that's not the case right now. Michigan can make a mistake, but you can't let it cost you. You can't turn the ball over in your own territory. You can't give up continual big plays. You need a little bit of luck, But at the same time, like, just play disciplined football and it'll go a long way. Ohio State's really good, and I think they're probably the more talented team on Saturday. That doesn't mean they're the best team, though. And I think Michigan can be that ultimate kryptonite for them if they play their brand of football with a healthy squad, obviously I'm talking about here. And, I think I heard you say it, Jared, and maybe you doubled down on this. You said that Michigan can't beat Ohio State playing the exact same way as they did last year, and I disagree. If Michigan plays the exact same way they did last year, you're fucked. I just don't know if they can because Ohio State's better than that this year. You know?
And that's the thing. When I say that, I don't say that Michigan can't do that, but this year they can't win that way, is all I'm trying to say.
Because you're saying Ohio State won't let them win that way.
Yes, it won't be because of Michigan. It's because of Ohio State. Ohio State won't let that happen again. Michigan can't win that same exact way. They're going to have to do something different. Now, yes, they're going to rely on their run game, but what can they do with the play-action game to kind of offset? Because Ohio State's going to be aggressive. They're going to load the box. They're going to probably play a 5 front, a bear front. What can Michigan do to offset that aggressiveness from Ohio State? That's going to be the difference.
Take one to the house.
That's what I mean. Last year, Ohio State could have put 27 people in the box, and Michigan was still going to run a halfback power up the middle for a touchdown. This year, it is completely different mindset. And Ohio State is so much different on defense this year that will not happen.
It just takes one, though.
No, there's nothing I am more confident in than the fact that Michigan will not run it down Ohio State's throat this year.
Interesting.
So, all right, let's talk about how does Michigan lose this game?
I think this is simple. I tied in a little bit with X factors here too, because this is my biggest X factor the entire game. So Michigan corners, they don't have an A+. They don't even really have an A, but they have 4 guys that are between the B+ B range. Those guys have to play like A's on Saturday because Ohio State has an A++ receiver. They have another guy. I know you think he's not going to play. Some people think he will, regardless. If he's half go, he's at least a B+ in Smith-Njigba, okay? You have 2 other guys, Mbuka and Fleming. On their best days, they're A's. I haven't seen them play like A's this year. I think you would probably agree with that. They've probably been more in the B+ range. Make them stay in that B+ to B range. You got to win these battles. You're going to get beat by Marvin Harrison. Period. Point blank. He's the best player on the field at the skill position. You can't let all those other guys beat you. You cannot. That is how 2018 got embarrassed. That is how a lot of times Michigan gets embarrassed, because as soon as you let that happen, then all of a sudden you get a run back gone. And at that point, it's a track meet. Michigan will not, under any circumstances, win a track meet. It won't happen. There ain't a single Michigan fan in here that's like, oh yeah, Michigan can win a track meet. No, the fucking they can't. Okay? Not against this team. Not against Ohio State. Maybe against Purdue. Maybe against Iowa. You ain't winning a track meet with Ohio State. You have to win some of these fucking battles. You're going to lose to Marvin Harrison. You're going to probably give up 100 yards to him. They lost to Olave. They lost to Garrett Wilson, but they didn't lose every single one. They kept Smith-Njigba under last year. They kept Olave to his casual stats. They kept Garrett Wilson to a decent check. He did have a really nice jumping touchdown last year over Vincent Gray, I believe it was. But it's like, yeah, you had one. You didn't have 6 of those. Each guy had their one big play, and you're allowed to give up one. You cannot continuously let this defense destroy you, though. Like these offensive skill players destroy you, though, because you're burnt toast at that point. Michigan's corners are the biggest X factor this entire game. I want Ohio State to pass. That's been my biggest thing for years. I want Ohio State to pass. Unfortunately, if they start passing and they're really good at it, Michigan's toast. They're toast. Because you're a run game. You run from behind. You start to pass, you start to get in rhythm, they take the lead. Doesn't look good for you. Biggest X factor in how they would lose if those receivers just take over the game.
Jayce, go ahead. How do they lose?
I mean, you can't disagree with anything that you just said there. But yeah, I mean, how do they lose? It's on the defensive side. I mean, that's how they lose this game. And you broke it down way than I would have broke it down, but I love it. So I'm not going to harp on that too much right now. But I think the game also relies, as much as the defense is this game, I think the game also relies on J.J. McCarthy's hands. It lies in his hands because he's the one who's in charge of the offense. He's the one who is now going to be should be making most of the plays on offense and has the plays on offense. It's time to do it. And I think that's going to be a huge key in Michigan's game is how J.J. McCarthy plays and how he handles the pressure of playing in this game. So how they lose, Michigan or their defense getting their ass beat, but also with a lackluster J.J. McCarthy play at quarterback. I don't think that they'll win this game with a normal J.J. McCarthy day where he's 10 for 19 and 112 yards and 1 touchdown. That like you just don't win games like that.
You just owned a J.J. McCarthy stat line. Yeah, it's tough. Jared, back at you, dude. How does Ohio State lose this game?
If they act like a bunch of pussies again. Straight up. I mean, I'm going to say how it is. Last year, they were a bunch of pussies. That's how they lose again. If they let that happen again, then that's just embarrassing. It really is. Also, we were talking about C.J. Stroud and being soft. He's not soft, okay? But he does need to level the fuck up. 100% needs to level it up. He has all the talent in the world, and it comes easy to him. But, dude, when things aren't there, you got to make something happen. And if Michigan can make him uncomfortable, like you say, in the pocket,
mm-hmm.
he does have a tendency to get loosey-goosey with the football. When he's rolling out and he, instead of throwing it away or running it, he'll try to force it to Marvin Harrison, which, damn, I can't blame the guy. But not this week. Not this week. Get your 5 yards and get out of bounds. Or, you know what? Fuck it. Run somebody over. But how do they lose? That's if they're a bunch of pussies on defense and if C.J. Stroud doesn't level up. That's how they lose this football game.
Who are your X factors for the game, Jared?
X factors? Oh, man. The X factors are the defensive tackles. We got Michael Hall, Tyleik Williams, Teron Vincent, and Devon Hamilton. Those 4 guys have to play the game of their fucking life. That group right there is the X factor. If they can live in the defensive backfield for Michigan, I don't think Michigan can win this football game. If they get bullied again, then we're going to have a battle on our hands. But if those 4 guys show up and say, Michigan is not going to stop us tonight. We are going to live in their backfield. Ohio State wins, and Ohio State runs away with it. And those are the X factors. Those are the X factors right there.
I'm so fucking hype.
Dude, I can't even. God bless it, I can't even wait. Can't wait.
I do have a quick question about X factors and kicker for Ohio State. Is it Noah Ruggles?
Noah Ruggles, yep.
Game on the line, 40 yards. You trust him?
No. Nope. If we were outside right now, it's just me and him in Columbus, and there was no fans in the crowd, I wouldn't trust him to make 40-yard field goal.
I think I love that about Michigan. Close game. We're down. I can't not bring up Jake Moody's clutchness in this pod. You know, I got the Jake Moody going on right here. Okay. And you know, I'll tell you what, Jake has been he's been money this year. And I think he's got to be an X factor. He's got to be brought up. He's gonna be I think he'll be big time on Saturday too.
Well, hopefully he doesn't kick 6 field goals.
Let's hope not.
All right, before I move on, we have another question in the chat here.
Yeah.
I'm guessing it's to me, but you guys can feel free to answer after me. Do you think Stroud is going to press this game? I don't think he's going to press the situation. I I don't think his ego, I don't think his personality is the type of person to press. He's very laid back and calm. And he lets the game come to him, I think, more often than not.
That's a good question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Go ahead. You go ahead.
I just think that's a good question because, as it pertains to the game in Ann Arbor last year, he just looked so rattled. His comments after the game didn't live up either. Basically saying, yeah, I got the flu and the weather was shitty and my favorite play was one I got called back. It just was it was a terrible look all around. Then, so you take all that together. You place him at home. Heisman's on the line potentially. You have how he was humiliated on the Heisman stage last year by Desmond Howard. That's in the back of his mind, wanting to embarrass Michigan. You have his previous appearance against Michigan. You have the whole weather critics out there, and because the weather doesn't appear to be great on Saturday. There's a lot that he has to prove. Can he really prove what he wants to prove, being quote unquote cautious? I think it's just a natural reaction that he would probably press a little bit. Do I think he presses too much? Depends. Is Michigan running the ball and dominating again? Or does Michigan look a little sloppy and maybe it's a 3-7 game? If he gets down 10, yeah, he's going to start pressing. I mean, he's going to have to. I don't know. It's hard to say. For me, he's one of the biggest X factors in this whole game because if CJ plays like a Heisman, Michigan's fucked. But if CJ just has an off game, I think you guys are in for a long afternoon. I really do. I think he's as great as he is. I just don't see him as I'm not scared of CJ Stroud this weekend. I'm scared of what Ryan Day has cooked up. I'm scared of what Marvin Harrison brings. I'm actually more scared of Michigan this weekend than I am Ohio State in a weird way. I think a lot of Michigan fans can actually agree with that. It's like, I'm scared of what we do, but I don't know. CJ Stroud's not one that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm terrified of CJ Stroud. It's just, to answer the question, I don't think he presses, but there is a lot of reason why he would.
I mean, CJ Stroud is good enough to press and overcome that pressure. I mean, he is good enough. The talent is there. Whether or not he does it, that's another question. But if he does press, his talent is good enough for him to be able to press and succeed.
It still intrigues me how the narrative around CJ Stroud is. He throws for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns on average.
At least.
People want to. But I'm saying people want to see more though, and I'm just like, why? He does. What other quarterback does that? He leads the country in passing touchdowns, but people still want more. I still don't know what that is. Is it? I don't think it's the throwing. I think it's the competitiveness. I think it's the fire that people want to see.
That's fair.
And I think I'm one of those people. I think there's something missing. There's something missing in his game, and I don't know what to point to. It's not running the ball. I don't need him to run the ball. I need him to show that he gives a fuck, that he wants to be there, that he wants to lead Ohio State in battle against Michigan. That's what I need to see. And I don't know if we've seen that yet.
Yeah. I mean, I don't disagree. Your fan base, maybe you fall on this, maybe you don't, I don't know. Your fan base, his first career game on the road at Minnesota, okay, to start the year in 2020. I believe it was 2020. Maybe it was 2021.
21.
Okay, 2021. So his last season. His first career pass attempt was on the road at Minnesota in a Big Ten game. So not a cupcake like Hawaii, like Michigan were playing or something. No, this was a road Big Ten game. It was his first game of the year. He struggled a little bit in the first half. And your fan base was calling for the backup immediately. CJ went on to have a pretty damn good year, if I'm not mistaken. He found himself in New York, almost accepting the Heisman Trophy. This year, against Northwestern, Michigan fans like me are berating him, but even more shockingly, Ohio State fans are attacking this man. Like, Michigan fans should be talking shit. That's typical. Ohio State fans should not be calling for the backup when this dude was just in New York, when he's the leading Heisman Trophy winner or candidate, when he's leading the league or leading the country in passing touchdowns. It's one bad game. I don't just your fan base towards CJ Stroud has always kind of been lack thereof. To be honest, there's really nobody's ever really been behind him. There's never been a confidence level in him, in my opinion. And maybe you don't have that either.
No, I back CJ Stroud 100%.
Oh, okay.
But I want to see I want to see what there's something missing though, and I want to see that. And maybe I'll see it Saturday. Maybe I won't. But there is no one else I want leading this team besides CJ Stroud. Don't get that wrong.
Okay.
All right. We have another question in the chat. This is in terms of betting. So the spread came out, obviously 7.5 Ohio State.
It's fucking disrespectful.
We'll get to that question in a second. The other question is the over-under is at 56 now. So let's just do over-under 56. What do you guys like? Jeff, go ahead.
I actually like the over-under at 57. I think 30-27, because I do believe this is low scoring to begin, but both teams have been very good in the second half. Michigan has needed to be good in the second half. Ohio State hasn't needed to be as good in the second half, but has been. 30-27 seems more than reasonable here. Keep you guys at that 27. I think you guys are familiar with that. Yeah, I like 57. So as of now, it's the over.
I'm going over.
Jayce.
There's going to be a late touchdown. Somebody's going to have the lead. It's going to be a late touchdown. I'm kind of with Jeff here. I'm thinking like 35-24, 35-27, something like that. It can be a late score.
See, I love the under. I absolutely love the under in this game. I just think the defenses are so much better than what we think, personally. And like we talked about, both teams are going to be feeling each other out. So offenses aren't going to get those. Like Ohio State comes out and normally scores 10 points first quarter. That's not going to happen. The under, I think, is good all the way. If it goes down to like a 53 or a 54, I think I'm off of it. But with 56, 57, I think I like the under still. Oh, my God. So many fucking Michigan fans in the chat right now. God bless me.
Love it. Go blue, baby. Go blue.
I got another one. Here.
Bring them up.
He says, being a Michigan bias, of course, if Michigan wins this game, what's the status for Ryan Day? Okay, I'll start here.
I've asked this question a bunch. Yes. Go ahead.
This question is, for some reason, has been floating around all week in the media.
To be honest, y'all fuckers deserve it because you did this about Harbaugh every year.
Ryan Day's lost 4 games in 4 years. He's
been great. But what if 2 of those are to Michigan?
He's been to 2 playoffs and 1 national championship game.
No, he did not win a national championship game. He won a playoff game.
He's been to 2 and he's been to 1 playoff game or national championship game.
And how did that national championship game look?
Answer
the question. If he loses to Michigan, what?
He's fine. 100% fine. Nothing changes. His seat's not hot.
Seat's not hot?
Not one bit. It shouldn't be. It should not be. Will it be? Yes, but it should not be.
I would agree, but I think it will be.
It won't be come Sunday because, based off what's going to happen Saturday. But that's to be talked about later.
Oh, boy.
And this next one is just a comment. He said, so the guy is a Michigan fan, lives in Columbus. Fucking dumb. He said, right now it's calling for a lot of rain. So he says it's going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
And then he chimes in and says he agrees with me with the day part. He thinks the fan base, though, as a whole will erupt and will be calling for his job.
That's where I'm at. I don't think the AD would even have a conversation with them. But I just feel like there is going to be a ton of Buckeye fans saying, this is Cooper all over again. I could beat everybody but Michigan. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, you could be right. But, I'm just saying, if you lose, it's hypothetically speaking, he loses to Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
He lost 5 games in 4 years. Come on, dude.
It's nuts.
I mean, come on. So I think it's dumb. All right, question for you guys. Michigan loses. Status of Harbaugh's job.
We're not Ohio State. It's just different. I think he's fine.
Jayce, I don't know if you feel the same way. Let's hear
I
it.
disagree. I don't know. I just have bad feelings about him. I have never felt good about Harbaugh leading Michigan football. I've never felt good about it.
That's crazy to me.
He just rubs me the wrong way. Like, yes, he puts a good product on the field, but I don't know, man. It doesn't sit well with me. But yeah, I think that there would be talks of a change being made. I don't think there will be a change made, but I think there would definitely be talks again. Or who knows, dude? He won one. Michigan is probably fine. They're probably the AD and the athletic department are like, oh yeah, who cares? They won one. Let them stay here for a lifetime contract. Who cares? But I don't know.
I don't.
Harbaugh has a lifetime contract. I don't think he is there until he doesn't want to be there.
I agree. And I don't think you can fire him for losing to the number 2 team in the country on the road. You cannot do that. You can't do that.
You're hired at Michigan to beat 2 teams. And if you can't beat one of them, I mean, what's the point? I mean, anybody can in my opinion, I think any coach in college football can go into Michigan and win 9 games. They can coach Michigan's football team any year and win 9 games because of the talent that you get and the recruits that you get, and because it's Michigan. But there's 2 to 3 games that you play that you hire a coach for to win. That's my opinion.
So if 9 games is your standard, Harbaugh's better than that.
I'm saying how easy it is to coach at Michigan because of the recruits that you get. I would say the same thing with Ohio State. I would say it might be even easier to coach at Ohio State. I'm saying on your day-to-day, your normal Big Ten championship or your Big Ten conference games. I'm not saying that's my standard. I'm saying that it's so easy. That should be the floor. If you lose more than 9, or if you win less than 9 games, you have no business being at Michigan. But that's why I'm saying I like Harbaugh, but I don't. The fact that he struggles against 2 teams, the 2 teams that he was hired for, that's questionable.
Is it fair for me to ask something? Can we just forget 2015 to 2020? And I don't mean that like it can't be held against him. But let me just give you a simple breakdown. Do you remember what happened in the 2014 season for Ohio State? They won the national championship. You know what Michigan did? They fired Brady Hoke. So in 2015, Harbaugh comes into town. What's he going up against? The reigning, defending, undisputed national champions. They're in 2 different classes. Okay? After 1 year, he walked into Columbus, punched Ohio State in the mouth, and had a bad spot taken away from him. Okay? And that game changed Michigan. It set him back. 2017 with John O'Corn. I want to forget about it, okay? The 2018 team, they stepped right back into the door. And if that game isn't in Columbus, and I don't want to make a bunch of what-ifs, but if that game isn't in Columbus, maybe there's a different outcome. But the revenge tour happens, and Ohio State punches them in the mouth. 2019, the team wasn't ready. Team wasn't physical enough. Shea Patterson, limited at quarterback. And Michigan hasn't gotten the quarterback situation right. So I think that's a lot of it. That seems to be the key of Michigan. 2020?
Harbaugh is a quarterback guy, by the way.
I know. Trust me. Trust me, I know.
Okay.
And I've also been on record more times than I can count. If Jake Rudock's the quarterback of 2016, we beat the Buckeyes' ass in Columbus that year. We weren't right. We haven't been right at quarterback. We haven't. This team has never been. It's not right at quarterback right now. It's not. That's Harbaugh's biggest issue is the quarterback situation. And he got a 5-star kid. It hasn't been enough. I'm willing to. I begged and pleaded with people after Michigan won the Big Ten last year to just give Harbaugh a fresh slate. Start it now. Because what you got in the past was just him building himself up. I'm a sucker for anybody that wants to coach Michigan. I didn't want to see Brady Hoke get fired because that dude wanted to be the coach of Michigan. But he sucked. Harbaugh does not suck. He gets beat by... Let's pretend we're LSU for a quick second. If we're grading ourselves on only beating Alabama, like, you can't do that. You can't do that. Ohio State happens to be on our schedule every single year. If that is the team that is beating you, and I'm not saying you have to go 0-6. Not acceptable. Don't get this twisted. But I'm sorry, if your expectations is only beating Ohio State, I just think that we've lost our expectations at the point. They're flawed. Super Bowl teams in the NFL lose multiple games a year. College football has been flawed. You know, a lot of people harp on Jim Harbaugh. I feel like we're just going down a train of Jim Harbaugh. People have harped on Jim Harbaugh's like bowl game record. Half the team's not playing. It's not. I just feel like it's gone out the window. Harbaugh, and a lot of it's his fault. I'm defending him here. The muffed punt in Michigan State, the bad spot in Columbus, poor quarterback play. There's been a lot. I'm personally writing a fresh start. I believe they're going to win in Columbus on Saturday. And maybe that'll get you to change your mind. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But I will say this. Michigan's always going to have those questions until they have some sort of quarterback play. And maybe that's just Harbaugh saying, he's just too stubborn to have that. I don't know. But I don't get the vibes I'm going to persuade you here. But I don't even consider myself like, oh my God, I'm like indebted to Harbaugh. It's just, I feel like he has gotten wrongly crucified / judged here. And some of it's on him, but not all of it is. The 0-5 or whatever it was against Ohio State. Dude, Ohio State was at their peak with Urban Meyer. Urban Meyer is a Hall of Fame level coach. And against Ryan Day, not to take anything away from him, they're 1-1. They have a good shot at moving to 2-1 against him. Until Saturday, I don't know. I just feel like you have to give Harbaugh another chance. You just almost have to give him a fresh slate. I just think it's unfair of where he came in, what he took over. The COVID year is unforgettable, but at the same time, it's like everybody was bad in COVID. Okay.
So let's go back to Jayce's point about beating the rivals. When's the last time they beat Michigan State and Ohio State in the same year? I'm just curious that you brought that up.
I don't know. But I know Harbaugh's record against both of them are not good.
I believe it was 2003.
That's how long it's been?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's tough.
Gotcha.
It's tough because in 2011 we beat Ohio State, but didn't beat Michigan State that year. And I mean, they've only beaten Ohio State twice in the last 20 years, and both those years they lost to Michigan State. I believe it was 2003. You can look it up if you want, but that was the year.
I believe you. I was just curious. Honestly, that's wild. I mean, I don't see it change anytime soon, but that's crazy. Yeah, nothing else in the chat that I see. So let's move on to some game predictions. Let's talk game predictions. What's everyone's been waiting for? So if you're in the chat right now, drop your game predictions while we go through them. Who wants to start?
Thought we already gave our game predictions.
I haven't given a game prediction yet.
Scores, game predictions, scores, all that stuff.
30-27, Jeff.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like an over/under, I don't like to give score predictions. As far as the over/under, I gave one. Yeah, my prediction is that Michigan plays disciplined football on Saturday, runs the ball at a great, effective level, forces C.J. Stroud. I think they get the W. I don't think it's as ugly and as much of an ass kicking as last year. Ohio State's at home; they're going to have some momentum on their side. But I think this is a legacy game for Harbaugh, and I think he feels really good going into it. I get those vibes, and has nothing. And I've said this a lot of times. I'm going to keep saying it. This has nothing to do with about Ohio State. This is about Michigan. Michigan is, and what I've seen. Yeah, to your thing, Jim Knowles has made this defense better. Well, Iowa's defense is pretty good. Ran all over them. Penn State's defense is pretty good. Ran all over them. They've ran all over everybody they've wanted to. Literally everybody except for Georgia. And something tells me that Ohio State's not going to be any different. I think Michigan's going to run the ball at will. And I feel like the game plan's going to be a lot of the same thing. A little bit of vanilla. A little bit of ugly. I like Michigan here. Close. But I like Michigan.
I got
By the
Michigan
way,
33-24. Jake Moody has 4 field goals.
You like Michigan 33-24?
Yep.
Wow. You just dogged Harbaugh for the last 20 minutes, and you're just taking Michigan by 10 almost.
Well, good thing Harbaugh isn't playing.
Oh, gosh.
So 2003 was the last time, by the way, Michigan
I
State.
thought it was, yeah.
The chat confirmed that. So far in the chat, we have 40-21 Ohio State. Don't think that's going to happen. And we have 27-23 Michigan. Will Johnson has a Charles Woodson type game when he was a freshman. So
Big X factor for me. Corners are X factors for me.
You never know. Never know.
Yep.
So I'm kind of in the same boat as you, Jeff. It's not about Michigan. This is about the mindset of what Ohio State has gone through the last 300 and what we were talking about, 364 to be exact. When it
Just
comes
as we
Saturday.
beat you. You guys haven't beat us, though, in 1,000 days.
But it's been a year since we were shocked as a team.
Yes.
As a program, we got shocked.
Yes.
And I think this team is different. I know you alluded to last year's team for Michigan being what?
Mm-hmm.
Just different. This team's different.
Yeah.
Ohio State this year is different. Don't think Michigan's going to come into the horseshoe and do whatever they want. That will not happen. It won't. I will say 24-17 Ohio State. These defenses are going to come to play. And if the weather's not going to be good, I don't see a lot of points being put up. So I'll go 24-17 Ohio State. That means the under will cover. I've already told you under. This is a lock of the century for me, under.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah, it's going to be a fucking battle, man. I'm ready. I'm excited. These next 3 days can't go by. Like, at this point, fuck Thanksgiving. Like,
yeah,
Thanksgiving needs to come. Give me my plate of food. And let me get out of here. That's all I need. That's all I need. All right, we got if Corum plays healthy or not, 34-30 Michigan. So, like I said, a lot of Michigan fans in the chat.
Yeah. You got a nice following.
I guess it's just my personality as a Michigan fan, but I don't like Michigan. I think Ohio State fans are just arrogant fucks, just assholes. They're just a lot of the time they're just dumb and they don't really watch the game. They just talk because Ohio State wins every week.
Yeah.
You just described your.
I mean, that's not me, but okay. If that's how you want to put it, that's fair. But I think you guys can both attest to that I'm a loyal fan. I'm also realistic. Realistic at the same time. I'm very realistic at the same time. And majority of the time in my lifespan, there's no reason for me not to like Ohio State to win any game. So if that comes off as being arrogant, I apologize.
It was a joke.
So that's all right. You're right, Jayce. I apologize to you, man. You're a Michigan alum, athletic baseball program. I got to make sure I'm nice to you. I apologize. But anything else that you guys have to say before we get out of here?
Go blue. That's all I got to say.
All right, Jeff.
Prayer circle. Donovan. Blake. Please, baby. That's it. That's all I got.
For sure. Jeff, again, I appreciate it, man. Appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you bringing your knowledge and your Michigan loyalty. I just want to wish everyone very good Thanksgiving. I know I just said fuck Thanksgiving, but I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you guys have a good one. I hope you enjoy the time with your family. Other than that, honestly, just enjoy the game. Just be happy that we can live in this life and be able to enjoy the opportunity that we have Saturday. Win or lose, it's going to be a hell of a time, baby. And for the next, I mean, maybe you never know. This might be the start of a new 10-year war. And we'll find out. So have a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy the game, guys. And I appreciate you once again, Jeff. Thanks.
Thanks for having me, guys. Go Blue, baby.
Oh, wait.